Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Elmhurst City Hall. This is Monday, April 6, 2009. Would you please all rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. I'd ask Clerk Spencer to please call the roll, establish quorum.
Regan, absent. Gutenkopf.
Here.
Leader.
Here.
Shea.
Here.
Graham.
Here.
Rose.
Here.
Gow.
Here.
Hipskin.
Here.
Moriarty.
Here.
Nybo.
Here.
Sapaniak.
Here.
Morley. Absent. Lomnicki.
Here.
Mulliner.
Here.
12 present, 2 absent.
12 present, 2 absent. We do have a quorum. Very good. Number 2 on this evening's agenda was a presentation of a proclamation for Jazz Appreciation Month in Elmhurst. And I see Brian Berghager is here this evening, and he's going to join me at the podium on my right, where we will present this proclamation. Very good, Brian. I was talking to Brian this morning as we were preparing for this night's meeting, and I had a little sidebar which I thought I would share with you. I think this may or may not be of some interest. I hope it is. A long time ago, when I was first mayor, I came into the office on my second or third day and found a proclamation that someone wanted me to sign and present here at Elmhurst City Council. This proclamation was from a national organization addressing a national issue and had very little, if any, nexus to Elmhurst. I thought, well, gee, I don't know if I want to do that. I'm not sure what it has to do with our community. So I thought about it a little bit. I set it aside. And within the next week or two, 3 or 4 of them filed up as well. The point of this being that they've come in at a rate of 1 or 2 and sometimes 3 a week for the last 16 years. And I suppose they'll continue to do so in the immediate future as well. Point is that there was a movement at the time to cut down on the issuing of government proclamations for, if no other reason, to save money. The development of this document takes employee time. This piece of paper is a special piece of paper that we have to order well in advance to have here, and then, of course, there's a frame. So I just thought it was the prudent thing to do to not do these proclamations unless there was a reason. So if you follow Elmhurst City Council, you'll see a lot of proclamations given celebrating all kinds of wonderful things in Elmhurst. You don't see a lot in the way of national proclamations. Tonight is an exception. When we look at this request, which came to us from Washington, D.C., from a national office for folks involved with and interested in perpetuating jazz music as an art form, I immediately set it aside. But Brian came into my office and argued that, in fact, there were several good reasons to do this having to do with Elmhurst. One, the first and second best reason are, one, the nexus of Elmhurst College and jazz in our community. As you know, a lot of people in our town and in our city know that Elmhurst College has a fantastic jazz band ensemble. And that's absolutely true. They do. How did that happen? Well, they have a fantastic jazz faculty over there. They recruit fantastic jazz students over there. It's one of the hardest schools in the country to get into if you are interested in jazz as an art form. They have different ways and they present this music. So it's a place where a jazz student can really spread their wings and learn their art and really engage themselves in this area of music. Having said that, we also have a magazine in Elmhurst, which you'll see in the proclamation is published here in the city of Elmhurst. And actually, Downbeat magazine has been published in Elmhurst for over 20 years. Now, as the mayor of Elmhurst, it's a big city. There's 43,000 plus people here. There's thousands and thousands of businesses and organizations, and I say that looking at John Quigley, the head of our Chamber of Commerce, is in the room. I don't know what that number is, but it's thousands and thousands. I'm not personally familiar with them all. Until about 6 months ago, I was unaware that Downbeat magazine was published here in the city of Elmhurst and has been for over 20 years. And that's really puts us right at the heart of the national, if not the global, jazz music movement. So with that in mind, I'm going to present this proclamation to Brian Berghager, who came over this evening from our historical museum, and is in fact the person who made the pitch to me to go ahead and do this. So, whereas jazz has produced some of America's finest creative artists and ranks as one of America's greatest cultural exports to the world, and whereas art education and an appreciation for the contributions of all American art form is fundamental to the people of the city of Elmhurst, and whereas the Elmhurst Historical Museum shares the story of Americans' jazz heritage with the people of Elmhurst and the Chicago area through its original exhibit, Elmhurst Jazz, a celebration of an American art form, and whereas Downbeat Magazine, an international leader in music journalism that has called Elmhurst home for the past 20 years, celebrates its 75th anniversary in 2009, and whereas Elmhurst College continues its important work as an innovator in jazz music education, community programming, and producer of the annual Elmhurst College Jazz Festival, and whereas the City of Elmhurst, in concert with the United States Conference of Mayors, supports the Smithsonian Institution's designation of April as Jazz Appreciation Month. Now, therefore, I, Thomas D. Marcucci, Mayor of the City of Elmhurst, do hereby proclaim the month of April 2009 as Jazz Appreciation Month here in the City of Elmhurst, and urge all of its residents to recognize the contributions of its original American art form to our community, the City of Elmhurst. Brian, congratulations to you. Thank you.
Sure. Thanks. Thank you, Mayor Marcucci. This proclamation of Jazz Appreciation Month is particularly fitting here in the city of Elmhurst. It's widely recognized that jazz is an American art form born within the borders of our nation, and it's widely recognized that jazz flourished in the past in the city of Chicago, and it continues to flourish in the city of Chicago today. But jazz does have a healthy home here in Elmhurst, and the Elmhurst Historical Museum is pleased to share this story and more through the exhibit that Mayor Marcucci mentioned, Elmhurst Jazz, a celebration of an American art form. The exhibit will be up at the Historical Museum through May 24th. The exhibit celebrates the 75th anniversary of Downbeat Magazine, probably the preeminent jazz publication read in more than 100 nations around the globe. Many people may not know that that Downbeat has been published here in Elmhurst, as the mayor said, for the past 20 years. The exhibit also celebrates 42 years of the Elmhurst College Jazz Festival, the second oldest collegiate jazz festival in the nation. And the festival is one of many reasons why Elmhurst College is recognized as an educational leader, not only here in Elmhurst and in the Chicago area, but throughout the nation. In addition to stories about Downbeat and Elmhurst College, the exhibit tells a more general story about jazz, and it includes rare opportunities to see a Louis Armstrong trumpet and a Benny Goodman clarinet. Speaking on behalf of the Elmhurst Historical Museum, I thank you, Mayor Marcucci, for recognizing how jazz contributes to the community of Elmhurst. And I thank you as well for demonstrating that the city of Elmhurst values culture and the arts as meaningful experiences for all residents here in the community. Thank you again.
Thank you. Okay, very good. Nice little punctuation mark to our exhibit going on over to Historical Museum through the dates that Brian discussed. Anybody wanting more information about that can look on the website, and it'll tell you when that exhibit is going to be running through. So, very good. Okay, moving on. Receipt of written communications and petitions from the public. Do we have any such written communications or petitions that anyone would like to hand in to the city clerk for subsequent copying to the Elmhurst City Council? Anyone? No? Okay, public forum. This is the point in our agenda where anyone in the council chambers can address the Elmhurst City Council on any issue of public interest here in the city. Would anyone like to do so this evening? Anyone? Oh, here's the hand here, sir. There's a microphone right there. Anyone else? The reason why I ask anyone else is Mr. Quigley is the chairman of our Chamber of Commerce, and he's done this many times before, so I think you know the basic format here, sir.
Keep it under
home
3
address.
minutes.
3 minutes. Don't ask a question. You know the thing.
Good evening. John Quigley, President and CEO of the Elmhurst Chamber of Commerce and Industry, 113 Adult Place. I would just like to take this opportunity to thank Mayor Marcucci and this entire City Council for its years of support of Elmfest, operated by the Chamber, the Elmhurst JCs, the Elmhurst Park District, Elmhurst College, and the City of Elmhurst. We appreciate how you supported that festival over the 26 years of its operation. While it is going away this summer, we think we have a great replacement in a partnership with Elmhurst City Center, a summer concert series that'll give Elmhurst residents something to look forward to in the heart of downtown Elmhurst in June, July, August, and September. It's noteworthy that we talked about jazz because the June concerts, that would be a Friday and Saturday concert. The opening Friday concert for this new concert series will be the Elmhurst College Jazz Band. So I thank you.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Quigley. Anyone else? Again? Anyone? Okay, very good. Seeing none, we return to the dais. As always, I thank you for coming out and making your thoughts known to us. It lets us know what's on the minds of folks here in Elmhurst. Number 5 on this evening's agenda is the consent agenda. I need a motion to accept the contents of the consent agenda in its entirety. Mr. Gao moves. Alderman Gutenkopf seconds. Anybody have any items they'd like to remove from this evening's consent agenda? Anyone? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Hearing none, that motion carries. I'd ask Clerk Spencer to please note for the record that that was unanimous, as indeed it must be by state statute. I now need a motion to approve the contents of the consent agenda, which was just accepted in its entirety. Mr. Hipskin moves. Alderman Moriarty seconds. I'd ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Hipskin.
Aye.
Moriarty.
Aye.
Regan. Absent. Gutenkopf.
Aye.
Leader.
Aye.
Shea.
Aye.
Graham.
Aye.
Rose.
Aye.
Gao.
Aye.
Nybo.
Aye.
Sapaniak.
Aye.
Morley. Absent. Lumnicki.
Aye.
Mulliner.
Aye.
12 ayes, 0 nays, 2 absent.
12 ayes, 0 nays, that motion carries. Okay, very good. Reports and updates of appointed and elected officials. Any reports or updates here on the dais? Mr. Gao?
I don't know if this belongs here or under announcements, but we did have a meeting, that is to say the Public Works and Buildings Committee at our last meeting determined that because of the interest and the flow of information that came to us about flooding around the city, particularly on Pine Street, but not exclusively there, that on next Monday in this building, in this arena, in this place, we will have a public meeting addressing flooding in Elmhurst, where we will present or report on what the city has done or what information we have with respect to that, what's happened from our standpoint, and then the floor will be open for people to comment, to add to that, to share with us their feelings, their attitudes toward what's been going on and whether or not that's adequate to meet their needs. So that would be next Monday. That would be the 13th. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. The 13th in this room, 7:30? 7 o'clock.
Okay, very good. Mr. Gao, I would take that under a recommendation that people who are interested attend. Right?
Yes.
Okay, very good. Anyone else on the dais? I have one short thing here, 2 things I wanted to discuss this evening. One of which has something to do with the fact that this is my last regularly scheduled meeting of the Elmhurst City Council. I do have one more after this in 2 weeks from tonight, but we believe that is going to be a somewhat abbreviated meeting. Maybe, maybe not. We'll see. But my point is, I did want to mention the Suburban Area Commission. I think many of my reports over the years have centered on the Suburban Area Commission and its efforts. I think all I wanted to say about it tonight is that I am a true believer in the goals of the Suburban O'Hare Commission, which are to advocate for and to defend a group of folks who, without their local elected representatives, are otherwise defenseless, which is to say a group of people being folks defined as those who are bothered by many, many airplanes over their homes. I think if I say that, I need to define many, many airplanes. When runway 4 right at O'Hare Airport is active, the jets come over when they're operating optimally, meaning when they're exactly as they're supposed to be, and they are operating exactly as they're supposed to operate about 98% of the time. The time difference, people say I got a plane over my house every minute. Some people say I got a place over my house every 2 minutes. Some people say I have a plane over my house every 3 minutes. Well, if you're interested, you can go out there and time them. When we're operating right, it's, well, at least the last time I did this, which was actually several years ago, it's 73 seconds. It's not a minute, it's not 2 minutes, it's 73 seconds. And why is that of interest? It's of interest because, and why is that so particular? Any closer than that, the FAA says it's dangerous. Any farther than that, they're wasting time. In the operation of the world's largest airport, time is of the essence. So they're striving for approximately 73 to 74 seconds. That's a lot of metal, that's a lot of aluminum, that's a lot of noise if it's coming right down your alley or right over your house. If you don't know where the noise is in the city of Elmhurst, if you don't really understand, if you live in Elmhurst and gee, it doesn't bother you that much, I suggest you get out a good map of the city of Chicago, any good road map that has the runways on it, put a ruler along runway 4 right and just draw the line. And you know where it goes over Elmhurst because it goes more or less right over the shopping center. Portillo's actually the north end of the shopping center, and then the baseball fields at Plunkett Park, and then over neighborhoods. And as you get farther and farther to the northeast, the planes are coming lower and lower and lower. Now, having said all that, there's a few things to add to this. Planes are much quieter today than they were when I first was here 16 years ago. And the reason for that is that many of the aircraft and their engines have been re-engineered to build quietness into them. Also, the 727s, the Boeing 727, or as we used to call it in Suburban O'Hare Commission meetings a long time ago, the Screamer, is long gone. There's very few of them operating in and out of O'Hare Field anymore, if any. They might even be illegal by this point. They were the ones that really made a lot of noise. So the fact of the matter is it's a little quieter than it used to be, if for no other reason than the aircraft are quiet. But having said that, there are other problems with aircraft operations, like, for instance, safety. Airplanes occasionally fall out of the sky. Now, I don't want to sound hysterical here, like Chicken Little and the sky is falling, or to, say it's likely that a plane's going to hit Elmhurst in the next year or even decade. It's not likely. But there is an acknowledgement that there are safety issues. There have been 3 aircraft accidents in the United States in the last month where planes fell out of the sky on their own, so to speak, and hit buildings and killed people on the ground. One of them in the last 24 hours. I just was watching CNN before I left for the meeting tonight. So there's always a problem with safety issues, particularly in very crowded skies, and we have the most crowded skies on the planet. Now, having said that, the city of Chicago, about 5 or 6 years ago, maybe even a little longer, about 5 or 6 years ago, opened up their safety training site on the campus, or on the field up there at the airport, to allow our firefighters into the airport to learn how to deal with these kinds of particular aircraft accidents that have to do with large amounts of fuel burning in aircraft hull structures, airframes as they call them, et cetera. So that was, again, a real problem, a little bit of a mitigation. There's also pollution issues. If you look up at these jets on a regular basis, and particularly sometimes in the evening when the sun is just right, you can really see the stream of exhaust coming out of the back of these planes. It's a real problem. There's a lot of pollution coming into our area as a result of O'Hare Field. The interesting fact is that for some reason, the EPA doesn't look at the field as a unit, as an operating large thing. It looks at like every jet one at a time and every truck one at a time, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So by way of example, if Commonwealth Edison wants to bolt a jet engine to a truck bed and park it in their facility up here in northeast Elmhurst, which is actually an unincorporated northeast Elmhurst, or actually unincorporated Addison Township, they have enough paperwork that because of the pollution thrown off by that turbine, they have enough paperwork that would fill this dais just to permit that one turbine, that one jet engine. And yet, the same organization, the EPA, the federal EPA, does not look at O'Hare Field and all of its jets collectively as a unit. We have reason to believe that the operation of this airport is the single largest polluter in the state of Illinois, period. End of report. So, having come to this point, it's not, in my mind, just an issue of fighting O'Hare expansion. The fight over O'Hare expansion is in large degree, not entirely, but in large degree, over. As you know, one of the new runways has already been built and open. And so there you have it. And it, by the way, doesn't point towards Elmhurst. And every plane that lands on that runway flies out over another community or does its slow, long drag into O'Hare Airport over another community. I felt then, it was my perspective, I'll share with you, that when the Suburban O'Hare Commission was formed, it was all about noise. It later very much became a fight over expansion. I believe that this is a mistake. I believe that we're buying for $20 billion what we could have bought at Piatone for $2 billion. And the runways at Piatone were pointed east and west almost exclusively, particularly when the airport should have been built 10 years ago, over rural areas that were very lightly populated. When it was revealed that the new runways, the super parallel runway aspect of O'Hare Field was going to run east and west on a series of 927s, that's heading to the runways, some folks said, well, Elmhurst should get out because we were safe. Well, runway 4 right is still open today. There are no plans to pull it out, first of all. And second of all, I felt it was unfair, maybe unethical, maybe that's too strong a term, wrong, for us to abandon the communities that had the runways pointing towards them just because the new runways weren't pointing towards us. I think we entered into this organization in the spirit of cooperation and helping each other, and I thought that it was important that we try to maintain that cooperation and help as long as we could. The fact of the matter is we haven't paid any money into the Suburban O'Hare Commission at this point for, I'm not sure, it's either 4 or 5 years. Bensonville and Elk Grove Village took the lead on the lawsuits. We demurred on that, and that was fine. So we'll see how this develops over time, but I just thought I would like to give my perspective on this as a wrap-up. I think it's important that we stay involved, that the elected officials stay aware of what's going on at the airport and advocate for our citizens in whatever manner they think is the best way to do so. Also, under the heading of reports, Mr. Borchett put on my desk late last week a report on from the department downstairs, the why am I stuck for the department? Building department, I guess, for lack of a better word. I think that's a sign over the door that I've been looking at for 16 years, the building department. They issue a report, a month-by-month report, and then quarterly wrap-ups of how active they are or are not. And I thought that there was a figure on here that was kind of remarkable. I just giving this report to the community. Folks can do with it what they want. New homes permitted in the city of Elmhurst in the first quarter of this year were 4. Last year there were 13. The year before there were 21. The year before that there were 44. The year before that there were 44. This year there were 4. So, as I've often stated, the teardown phenomenon is something that is driven by the economy. I believe in one of our an interested citizen in Elmhurst recently pointed out that The drop in property values in Elmhurst was accelerated because Mayor Marcucci had exacerbated the uprise in property values by permitting teardowns. Well, first of all, I didn't permit teardowns or not permit teardowns. Teardowns are just something that happen more or less naturally. But yes, I don't think there's any question that the fact that the builders were bidding up the houses did lead to the rise in property values in our community. There's just no question about it. If you wanted to buy a house to live in it, you had to bid against the builder. And as I've said many times, there are a lot of people who make money on teardowns. The first one is the person selling the house, the person that's owned that house in Elmhurst maybe for 10 years, or 20 years, or 30 years, or, as in the case of my father, at this time, 54 years. So I just think it's of some interest. There were 0 demolition permits pulled last month in March, and only 2 so far this year. So I think that this is something that's going to obviously kind of go into a simmer here for a while. My expectation is that when the economy picks up again, whether it's in the fall or next fall or whenever, that this issue will come back. But I just wanted to report what's going on. There is a side effect of that, by the way. As you know, when we permitted the building of the new Elmhurst Memorial Hospital, we agreed upon a price for the permitting fee that was negotiated between the city and the hospital, and it's a fixed price. We anticipated at the time that we were going to have to hire out a great deal of the inspection process because our inspectors have been busy, very busy, with this new housing construction phenomenon of late, and of late I mean the last several years. It's not the case anymore. So we've been able to deploy our own inspectors down onto the hospital site, and we are saving money for our taxpayers and for our budget because we're not hiring out anywhere near as much of that function as we thought we were going to have in the first place. So that's good news for the Elmhurst taxpayer. There's still a lot of inspections going on down there at the hospital every day. We're down there every day. The builder is down there every day. His architectural firm is down there every day. They have a lot of specialty inspectors on that site. It's a hospital. It's not a 4-story apartment building, so it's a very technical building, a very technical build-out, and they have all kinds of people down there taking a look at it on an ongoing basis. So I'm very confident that it's being built not only to code, but to the proper technical specifications that would go along with a structure such as a hospital. So, moving on, under reports, you see now the next thing, Bicycle Task Force report. You will recall that late last fall, I announced the formation of a bicycle task force here in Elmhurst with the task of looking at issues and deficiencies, opportunities, educational opportunities, structural and functional opportunities, safety opportunities here in the city of Elmhurst relative to bicycles. It's clear to me, and I think it's clear to everyone in our community, that the use of bicycles has really exploded over the last 3 or 4 years. It's not something that just children do anymore. There's many, many people who are using bicycles for a variety of reasons, not the least of which is exercise and health of themselves, their spouse, and their family, and functionally getting to work, getting to school, going shopping, running the errands, all manner of things, getting to public transportation, getting to Metro to ride the train downtown or out to Wheaton or wherever they want to go, their business, not ours, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I felt that it would be more appropriate that we be proactive about this change in our society, about this change in our culture, and try to prepare for it rather than just sitting on our hands and letting it hit us with various problems as they manifest themselves. So a committee was formed. Bob Hull is the chairman of that committee. He's here this evening. He's going to give us a brief update in the document that is before you. There's going to be an opportunity to ask questions afterwards. Now, you didn't get this document till tonight. That's fine. This document's going to have a life beyond tonight. So if you don't have an opportunity to ask questions tonight, that's fine. You'll have an opportunity in the future. But Mr. Hull, that microphone is there, sir. If you could please give us, again, a brief understanding of what the document is all about, and what some of its more salient points are and where we go from here.
Good evening, and thank you, Mr. Mayor. For those of you who have seen me attend meetings here over the past year, you've probably noticed that I started sitting in the back row, and I've slowly worked my way up toward the front row in anticipation of this evening. First of all, I'd like to thank Mayor Marcucci for forming the Bike Task Force. It is a lot of forethinking in doing that. I would also like to extend my thanks to many of the aldermen that I've had a chance to work with and speak with, and who have offered their statements of support for what we're doing. To start with, I'd like to introduce the members of the Bike Task Force that are here tonight. Unfortunately, they couldn't all make it because I'm told that some of them are out at a bike race somewhere. I'm going to start with the resident members of the task force. I will introduce all of them, though they're not all here. And I would ask that as I read your name, if you'd stand up and acknowledge. Rebecca Clancy, who is not here. Karen Fiedler. Diane Himes. Sue Montgomery. Paul Peterson, who unfortunately is in France at the moment, and I think he's watching a bike race. Barry Rollins. Steve Sinderson, who is not here. Don Whistler, who is not here. I think he's watching a basketball game or something. And finally, Donna Turner, who's a late add to our group and attended the last meeting. With regard to the other stakeholders that were part of the task force, I'm going to start at the top, and I won't ask you to stand, but again, a wave of the hand would help. Tom Borchert, our city manager. Steve Neubauer, the chief of police. Jim Doherty, the deputy chief of police. Mike Hughes, the public works director. John Sedd, the planning, zoning, and economic development director. Greg Harmon, representing Elmhurst College. Diane McGinnis, the community liaison for Elmhurst Memorial Hospital. Todd Gibbons, representing the Chamber of Commerce. Tom Paravola, the managing executive director for City Center. Rich Grodsky, the director of the Park District. Jim Rogers, the deputy director of the Park District. Matt Poole, the park ambassador for the Park District. Pat Masterson, the assistant superintendent for finance from District 205. Paula Toomey from District 205. And then finally, Rose Walsh, the library board president. Our report consists of a covering letter that summarizes the activities and accomplishments of the Bike Task Force and several reports from the 3 committees that were created within the task force that allow us to develop and move on issues more quickly. Please view the report as it is intended. These are fact-based solutions that will encourage the use of bikes for both recreation and as a mode of transportation. It reflects the opinions of a consensus of the task force and should not be considered the only solutions. Our committees were 3. The first one was bike parking and storage, which was chaired by Barry Rollins. The second, bikeable street map and related issues to bike routes, which was chaired by Steve Sinderson. The third was education, a very broad category because we're dealing with education not only of cyclists, but motorists, pedestrians, and all of the folks in the community. That was chaired by Rebecca Clancy. The report is further broken into time frame deliverables. First, near-term and completed items. These are the low-hanging fruit that we were looking to get first. Second, items that are in progress, that there was just a little more than we could accomplish in 3 months. And third, long-range planning and an application for bike-friendly community status. Thanks to our many stakeholders for their contribution of time and personnel. You heard the long list of folks that I read that are stakeholders. These are people that are donating their time to be there. These are after hours in many cases, and they're not getting paid to do this. A special thank you to the city for extending to us the use of your map-making guru. The first iteration of the Bikeable Streets map is posted on the city's website. Also, thanks to the city's IT department for building a Bike Task Force web page on the transportation of this page of the city's website. Meeting agendas, minutes, street map, and other bike resources from local to national levels are also listed there. We've identified informational pieces to add that speak to bike tips, bike handling skills, and bike safety education. These will be available later this month as we head into prime biking season. You will find in the report many solutions, both concrete and conceptual. Some that are easy to implement, while others that take time, effort, and that short commodity, money. We've built a communications network for getting information out to all the stakeholders in our community. As completed, we have tried to make sure that we've not identified, okay, excuse me just a second. We've built this communication network that would reach out to all of the different groups in our community. And as we have completed it at the moment, we've tried to include everybody that we could identify. And I'm sure that we have missed a few. So please don't view that list as being completely finished. It will always be a work in process. At the same time, our cross-hatching will make sure that we are connecting with the majority of those living or doing business in Elmhurst one or more times. So we'll be encountering these folks from different directions, whether it's from the school or from the church or from the city or the park district. Key to all of our efforts was, however, to position Elmhurst to become a bike-friendly community. This is a unique measure of a livable community that is currently held by only 90 cities in the United States, and which will add yet another credential to our city. It will serve to enrich life experiences for both kids and adults, and has been shown in other communities to improve property values. It will mean the development of a lifestyle that is more sustainable in the future. Anything that can be done to make our city more bike-friendly will ultimately make it a safer community for everyone, pedestrians, cyclists, and motorists. Thanks again, Mayor Marcucci, for the foresight to establish the task force. We are pleased to have served Elmhurst in this capacity and look forward to the opportunity to continue our efforts under the next mayor. Be happy to accept any questions if there are.
Thank you, sir. A very thorough report. I appreciate your time. Before we take the questions, I want to emphasize that again. I appreciate the time that you and your committee put in. There are many, many nights here at City Hall where you were working on these issues. Some of these, as you said, are low-hanging fruit and strike everybody as simple and easy and obvious and almost common sense-like. Some of them are a little bit more complex than that and will require a little more thought as we go forward. But in either case, I appreciate your efforts in coming out on some pretty nasty nights through the course of the winter to get this done and wrapped up by this evening. So, any questions of Mr. Hull and his group? Anyone? Alderman Gudenkauf.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First, I'd like to say that I think this is a wonderful endeavor. I'm thrilled to see that the Bicycle Task Force has gotten so far. I know it probably feels like you've got a big list of things you wanted to accomplish and didn't get through it all, but I think this is a wonderful inroad. Mr. Hull and I know, Mr. Hull knows that I bike here occasionally, and I bike to work, and we've crossed paths on bicycles, and I'm personally excited about it. I'm also thrilled to see that you're pursuing the Safe Routes to Schools, a bicycle initiative to get kids on their bikes and get them back and forth, which I think is great. You mentioned that your list of potential partners isn't complete, or you'd be willing to entertain some additions. And so what I'd like to encourage you to do is to look at the 2 other school districts and the other park district that serve our community. Something I think tends to slip off the radar screen is that we have a second park district in Elmhurst. The Pick subdivision is a park district. And that the Salt Creek School District and part of Villa Park District 45 also serve Elmhurst residents. And so I hope that we can figure out a way to reach out to those 3 groups and incorporate them in some of the further discussions about how we can make Elmhurst a more bicycle-friendly community and continue some of this great work, and maybe plug that into the education long-range plan a little bit. So thank you for all the work you're doing.
Thank you. Just one comment about safe routes to schools. Tomorrow night I will be presenting to the PTA Council about what the Bike Task Force has been doing, with a focus on exposing them to the Safe Routes to Schools program.
Okay, very good. Anyone else? No? Okay, a couple of questions and comments here. On tomorrow evening's meeting, it's tomorrow evening? With
Tomorrow
the
evening, yes.
PTA? I don't know if these 2 groups mix naturally or not, but I'm presuming that that is a collection of PTAs from District 205. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. As Alderman Gutenkopf pointed out, we have other school districts in Elmhurst, and we also have a number of parochial schools. Now, it's clear that your report did not ignore the parochial schools. I don't know to what degree your presentation or discussion tomorrow evening is school site specific. If it's not, it might be worth an effort to bring some of the parochial schools into the discussion at this point as well. I'll leave that. You know more about your presentation tomorrow evening than I do, so whether that's appropriate or not, I'll leave up to you.
Tomorrow evening I am speaking at the pleasure of the PTA Council.
Okay.
So, but yes, we will be reaching out to those other groups and incorporate them as we can.
PTA Council is a public meeting, though. If you invited the other folks, they can show up, right?
Yeah.
Okay, very good. The only other comment is I read, and I told you I was going to read it. I asked for a copy of it so I could try to be prepared this evening, and unfortunately we didn't get the copies to the folks on the dais until tonight. But on page 4, under long-range plans and recommendations, under education, it said the availability and delivery of bike safety information as well as teaching motorists how to share the road. I'm going to repeat a statement that I made in the committee meeting one night, in your committee meeting, in front of your folks, because I think it's 2 things. It comes out of my own experience, and B, I think it's fair, which is that I'd like to have that reworded in teaching motorists and bicyclists alike how to share the road. I mean, that's the point, right? We got to share the road. And as I said to your group, I've had contact with bicycles with my car twice in the last 3 years, and in both instances, the bicyclist was completely and totally wrong. Now, I mean, if somebody wants to ask me after the meeting to tell them the story, I'd be glad to do it. That's really not the point. The point is that if you drive around the city of Chicago all day like I do, you see drivers doing all kinds of knucklehead things, and now, because there's a lot of bicyclists, you see bicyclists doing all kinds of knucklehead things. So they're no better or worse than the car drivers. And the point is that we need this to be an even-handed approach. We're not trying to prosecute anybody or persecute anybody. On the other hand, I think the process will have a better result if we approach it with a recognition that whenever you're on the public right-of-way, whatever vehicle you're in, you have a responsibility to other people in that public right-of-way. So just a little even-handed approach. Not to say I don't agree with everything in the report.
And it will be noted.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Okay, very good. Bob, thank you very much. What's going to happen next is, because this is the process here at Elmhurst City Council, I am going to drop a letter in the bucket, as we say. It'll put this on the agenda 2 weeks from tonight with a recommendation that this report go to the Public Works and Buildings Committee for further review. I believe it's Public Works because much of it has to do with the configuration of sidewalks, the configurations of streets. Public safety as well is certainly going to have a play in this because there's things like yield signs and stop signs, and do you put a stop sign on a path that's only for bicycles, and is that legal or not, and all that kind of stuff. So there's all kinds of work that needs to be done here, but when we thought about it, it seemed like it's best to start in the Public Works and Buildings and see how it goes from there. So, and we'll see. We don't even know what that committee's going to look like in a month, so we'll go from there, but it's a start at least, okay? Well, thank you very much. I appreciate all of your efforts, and I appreciate you getting this done by this evening, which was the charge in the original description. Thank you of the task. Okay, very good. We now move on to ordinances. As you can see, we only have one ordinance before us tonight, item number 7A. It's O-09-2009. I'd ask the clerk to please read the title thereof.
A budget and appropriation ordinance for the City of Elmhurst for the fiscal year beginning on May 1, 2009, and ending on April 30, 2010.
Okay, very good. This is the budget document that we have been working on for the last 6 weeks or so, hands-on, and that the staff has been developing since last fall. There were a number of votes that fine-tuned and sculpted the final document, but here it is in front of you now. I need a motion to put this before the council for a final vote. Who would like to move? Alderman Lubnicki, Alderman Mulliner, seconds. Discussion. Mr. Spivey.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to make a motion to basically reconsider the $75 block party fee. And I agree with Alderman Nybo a couple of weeks back. I've gotten more and more communication on that $75 fee, which essentially is, I don't think, covering overhead. The fixed overhead is there, and while there is some element of cost, I don't think it's certainly $75. And this is new. We never had this as a $75 fee, although the budget has a deficit.
Okay, you're arguing the point. Let's get a second on that first. Anyone care to second this? Mr. Morley. Okay, before we go on, I want to ask the city attorney, who acts as my parliamentarian as well. This was an item that was moved at the last meeting and decided upon and voted upon. And I don't know what side you were on. Were you on the...
I said no, so I can bring it up.
Okay, so you were on the prevailing side. Okay. Were you on the prevailing side, Mr. Morley?
Actually, no.
You were a no. You were not a no. Do we need the motion and a seconder to be on the prevailing side? I'm taking it as a motion to reconsider, is what I'm doing. And tell me if I'm wrong to do that.
Mr. Borchard and I discussed this today. I don't think that this budget needs to be amended to either impose the $75 or not impose the $75 fee. What's needed is a motion from the city council to say, yes, impose it, or no, don't impose it. So I think you don't need to reconsider. All you need to do is make a motion to that effect to get it on the floor.
Well, that's under the, let me, bear with me here, sir. Just trying to do this right. The city council can change the budget midstream, mid-year, right?
Spending, that issue would be an appropriations issue, which can be changed, yes, during, it's spending, so that can be changed during the year, right. It doesn't have to be in this budget.
Okay, hold the thought. City Clerk Spencer. We have a motion before us, O-09-2009. That motion's already been made, right?
Yes.
Who made the motion, who seconded it?
Lumnicki and Rose.
Okay, fine. Here's my point.
Morley.
No.
Morley. Lumnicki and Morley.
It wasn't?
Mulliner.
Mulliner.
No, it was
I'm
not.
not hearing good these days. Okay.
We look alike.
I thought I heard him say Rose. It's hard to get it when you're...
Okay, so my point is this. In the entire 365 days a year, 24 hours a day, 60 minutes in an hour, et cetera, you can change the budget anytime you want. Except right now you're trying to change it while it's actually before us in something that was discussed last week and voted on last week. So what I'm suggesting is, and I'm asking you, is this motion out of order because we actually got the budget document before us right now?
Well, yes, because the budget document is on the floor, and you don't need to amend the ordinance to do what Alderman wants to do, so
Right.
therefore it's out of order.
All right. And what I'm saying, what I'm suggesting to you is that you could put it on for 2 weeks from tonight. It's not on the agenda tonight. And okay? In other words, I'm not trying to tell you whether it's a good idea or not to do it or not. That's for the council to decide. But the only way I think it can be done tonight is to reconsider the motion from last week. It's a motion to reconsider. It was exactly the same decision.
And that could be done after the budget's dealt with, since it's on the floor.
It's not right to do that with the because that, 2 weeks ago, it was within the budget discussion. This is within the budget discussion.
But it doesn't affect this budget, is what I'm saying. I wasn't here 2 weeks ago, so I wasn't,
Well, it was the exact same issue. Okay.
the way to handle it would be after the budget is dealt with tonight.
Yeah.
A new motion or a motion a new motion in 2 weeks, or a motion to reconsider
Tonight.
is appropriate.
Why isn't a motion to reconsider appropriate now under the umbrella of the discussion?
Because the budget is on,
It's part of the budget. It's germane to the budget.
but the budget does not have to be amended to do what he wants.
It doesn't have to be, but could it be?
Maybe you can explain it.
Sorry to get hung up on a little fine point of parliamentary procedure here, but,
Yeah, I don't know a parliamentary procedure, but the budget hasn't been approved yet, so.
right. Okay, chair's going to make a call. Call is,
Point of order,
yeah,
if it is a motion to reconsider, I was not on the majority.
yeah, I heard that.
So
You
I
told me
can't.
that. All right. Let me make my call. My call is that it is appropriate to move this to reconsider. It's part of it was an amendment last week on the exact same thing. We were discussing the budget, but I think it's clear to me that it's a motion to reconsider, and it's appropriate at this time. You were on the prevailing side, which was no. You need another no to second that motion. The motion to reconsider has to be made and seconded by folks who are on the prevailing side, I believe, right? Right. Is there someone who voted no last week who would like to second this tonight? Mr. Gao?
I'll second.
Yes? Yes, I recognize Mr. Gao as the second. Yes?
The motion 2 weeks ago
Yeah?
was not on a budget.
No, this is an amendment to the
We
budget.
don't have a budget. So the proper motion would be not to reconsider, but to amend this budget, if in fact it needs to be amended. The ordinance.
In my view, last week, we had a budget document in front of us, and we were fine-tuning it. We were amending it. We were adding things to it and taking things away from it. Those were, in fact, motions to amend the budget.
And that budget now is before this.
And that budget is now before us.
In ordinance form.
Right.
So to amend that ordinance, you need a motion, which is appropriate at this point.
We got it. We got a motion to reconsider.
I don't mean to be arguing, just 2 weeks ago was a committee meeting, that's all. Maybe it's subtle, maybe it's not, I don't know.
2 weeks ago was a committee meeting.
I think there's two ways to handle this. Act on the budget and then make a motion after we're done, or make a motion to amend the document that's before this board right now.
Okay. All right. I think the fact, let's go back here. Last week,
How does it need to be?
Mr. Borchard has reminded me that last week was a committee of the whole, or 2 weeks ago. Gentlemen, let me try to set the course again. I tried it once already, and if I'm wrong again, you can help me out. Mr. Borchard has appropriately pointed out that 2 weeks ago we were in a committee of the whole setting. This is not a committee of the whole. This is the Elmhurst City Council. Now, having said that, there's no need for a motion to reconsider because it would be new. Having said that, we've crafted the budget. The budget is a document in its totality, and I would rule on the side of we don't need to amend the budget. If we're going to amend the budget tonight, then the whole work we've been doing for the last 10 weeks goes out the window, and we could argue it all over again. So we're not going to do that. The motion before us is to pass the budget, yes or no. You want to amend the budget later on? Do so at your pleasure.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Alderman Gudenkauf?
Point of order, yeah. It seems to me that with any ordinance, we have the opportunity to amend the ordinance when we're voting to pass it. Didn't we do that last year with the budget?
We did that last year. We did that 2 weeks ago in the Committee of the Whole. This was all argued and voted on at the time and decided. If the council wants to change its mind, it can change its mind and change the budget that it decided to pass 2 weeks ago, but it hasn't even passed it yet. We're at the fine point now of passing the budget as crafted by the Elmhurst City Council.
Can I ask a follow-up question on procedure then?
Yeah?
There are items in this budget that council members are uncomfortable with. Are you suggesting that we vote down this ordinance and then make an amendment to change it and then vote on the amended ordinance?
No, that's not what I'm suggesting. What I'm suggesting is that there are all kinds of things in budgets here. There are things in this budget right now that I don't like. It's beside the point. The budget has been crafted through a roughly 6-month process that at the end of our meeting 2 weeks ago, we wrapped up. We had an opportunity to meet last Monday night if we wanted to argue points on this some more, but we didn't take it. So the crafting of the budget is done. The budget is before you. You pass it. And by the way, if you don't like something in it, vote no. But if you vote no, we run up against the fact that we cannot call a special meeting to craft it because that's against the Elmhurst City ordinance. They have a special meeting between an election and swearing in of the new council. And state statute requires basically that we pass it tonight as is. Is that right, Mr. Borcher?
You've still got 2 weeks from tonight, which is
Oh, we just have 2 weeks from tonight. The old council will be here 2 weeks from tonight. You can. What I'm saying is you can put this on the agenda 2 weeks from tonight. No problem. I mean, the budget is a living, breathing object. We've amended the budget midstream many times in the past. And you have all year to do it, or next week, then 2 weeks to do it. But tonight, you have the budget document as crafted. And although I would take this opportunity to advise you not to vote no on the budget, if we end up without a budget, we also then we run up against all kinds of legal problems and the inability to pay bills, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We once had aldermen here one year vote no on the property tax levy because they didn't agree with the amount. And I don't remember exactly what it was, but it was between one number and another number, and they didn't like the number that the majority settled on, so there were some votes no on the property tax levy. Well, if that had prevailed, if we had actually voted no, first of all, we would have no property tax levy the next year, and we'd be out in that era, the property tax levy was about $3.5 million. We'd be out that money overnight, and we also would regress. We're a home rule community, but we'd regress our tax cap number to 0, which would be potentially disastrous going forward as well. So, anyways, the chair, at the advice of the city attorney, is that this is not a motion to reconsider. It's not in order at this time. Is that fine?
Yes.
And we'll just deal with this budget document. Mr. Saponiak is on the record for wishing to see this changed, and we have plenty of opportunity to do it in 2 weeks. And make sure that it's on, work with Mr. Borch and make sure it's on the agenda if you want it on the agenda so we can consider it.
Sure, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Mr. Nibel.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm only an attorney, so I don't fully understand parliamentary procedure. But couldn't Alderman Szczepaniak call or make his motion under other business after we've passed the budget? I mean, what's the point in having to wait 2 weeks?
Well, except that it's a substantive issue and it's not on the agenda, and that violates the Open Meetings Act.
If we considered it 2 weeks ago?
Yeah, you can't. There might have been a room full of people here 2 weeks ago. Issue resolved. That's one of the exact bingo. It's one of the exact reasons for the Open Meetings Act. Councils would do things when, you know, whatever. I'll make up a story here. 300 people out to make sure the council votes yes. So, okay, the council votes yes. The next 2 weeks later, it's not on the agenda. Nobody in the room. Oh, motion to reconsider. We vote no. Done. And to some degree, and I pointed this out to Mr. Kubica in the past, and I've pointed this out to some folks at the mayors and managers, not the municipal league, but I didn't bring it that far, but to the point that almost other business is almost obsolete on these agendas because it's virtually illegal by the fact that for all intents and purposes, it runs afoul of the Open Meetings Act, Sunshine Law. So, good question, and I think before, with the absence of the Open Meetings Act, you would have been absolutely right. Anyone else? Anyone? Yes.
I appreciate your position, Mr. Mayor, but I'm not sure I understand why a motion to reconsider would be contingent upon the audience. As I read the municipal code, a motion to reconsider can be brought up anytime after that vote, but no later than after the next
Okay, well, you're mixing up the apples and the oranges and tomatoes and bananas of this discussion. The motion to reconsider is not in order because it was not decided on by the Elmhurst City Council meeting as the corporate authority. It was decided upon by a committee of the whole that was in the business of crafting the document that it was going to then present to the council. Okay, so now, could there have been a motion to reconsider almost immediately after that vote that night, but there wasn't. There could have been a motion or a request that we schedule a publicly announced meeting on last Monday evening, which we all took off because it was a fifth meeting, but in many budget years, we've used that fifth meeting to finish up the budget, but we chose not to do it. Okay, so that the budget document as a whole body of work now comes before you as voted on and approved by the committee of the whole. So that's why a motion to reconsider is not valid at this point. Now, but you started your question with why isn't a motion to reconsider valid, having in view of, and you referenced the people in the room. That was to Mr. Nibel's question, which was a very good question, and 10 years ago probably would have been absolutely correct, which is, wait a minute, can't we do this under other business? And my answer was that you can almost do nothing under other business anymore because it violates the Open Meetings Act. And one of the reasons is that it needs to be posted so that people who are interested in that item, positively or negatively, can come out and go to the microphones and let you know how they feel about what you're going to talk about. So there were two different answers to two different questions, and you juxtaposed them in your question. Mr. Brandt.
Another point of order. So, not even touching on the motion to reconsider, but the motion to amend, if that motion would fail, don't you fall back to the previous motion, which would be the ordinance before us? So why wouldn't that be a plausible thing to do at this point, this juncture?
Because the city attorney has ruled that the document before you was developed by all of you in the past, and it is a whole and complete document. And and what my answer was, if you recall, was that this document is only before you for about 10 minutes a year. And what I'm suggesting to you is that you not amend it during those 10 minutes, but that any time during the rest of the year when publicly noticed, properly noticed, and on the agenda, it's fine to amend it. Do I have this right or not? Okay, help me out, Mr. Borgia. Mr. Brand doesn't look like he's happy with that answer. Go ahead.
If I may, as to the issue, it gets a bit complicated, but the ordinance before the City Council is the expenditure budget.
Right.
And the City Council across the state of Illinois need to approve by ordinance the expenditure budget. The issue that I heard Alderman Sapaniak raise, and I heard others have discussed, is the revenue estimate prepared by the city staff that has been discussed as needed to balance the expenditures. And the council indicated that it wished the budget to be balanced, revenues to expenditures with no unanticipated revenues. I indicated that in the revenue side, because of the other shrinking revenues, the city staff was instituting a street closure permit fee to a company, Black Party Permits, that required the street to be closed. I would suggest that if the city council wishes not to charge a street closure permit, that by motion could be made by the city council in a form of, I would move that the city council direct to the city manager not to charge a street closure permit fee and allow block parties to be free. If that's approved, we proceed that way. You don't really need to change the budget because the budget is the expenditure side. To close the street, the city's already got the money in the budget to close the street. The city would just not have the revenue that would come from the street closure permit fee, and at the end of the year, we'd be less that revenue.
Okay, with all due respect to everybody, that's exactly what I've been saying. This is the budget's before you, it's complete. Having said that, you can change the budget, you can change the revenue stream, you can do that later on, just can't do it tonight. It's not on the agenda. And I ain't gonna run afoul of the Open Meetings Act in my last week, if you don't mind. Right? I mean, why? John Gow's laughing at me. We've been jumping through hoops trying to do this right for years, right, John? I mean, we're not gonna screw it up now. Right? So, anyways. Okay? This is the budget. This is the expenditure side. You got it?
Fine.
Cool with it?
Yes.
Okay. Very good. Thank you. See no other questions or comments, I'd ask the clerk to please call the roll on the motion before us, which is O-09-2009.
Lomnicki. Aye. Mulliner.
Aye.
Regan, absent. Gutenkopf.
Aye.
Leader.
Aye.
Shea.
Aye.
Graham.
Aye.
Rose.
Aye.
Gow.
Aye.
Hipskin.
Aye.
Moriarty.
Aye.
Nybo.
Aye.
Sapaniak.
Aye.
Morley.
Aye.
13 ayes, 0 nays, 1 absent.
All right, thank you very much. That was 13 ayes, 0 nays. The motion carries, the budget is passed. Okay, other business, which as I just said is practically illegal. Maybe we might want to talk about taking this off the standard agenda at some point. And with a notice on the bottom that other business has been removed because it doesn't comply with the Open Meetings Act. Announcements. We need a motion to adjourn. Alderman Sapaniak moves, Alderman Moriarty seconds. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, hearing none, that motion carries.